Good morning. We're a little late, but pretty much 10 o'clock. This is Chair French convening the regularly scheduled business meeting of the Kansas Corporation Commission for this Thursday, August 26th, 2021. On today's agenda, we have 13 consent agenda items, 2 noticed items, and 1 discussion item. And I am joined today by my colleagues, Commissioners Keene and Duffy. Good morning. We will move to our consent agenda. First, Commissioners, you've had the opportunity to review the items on the consent agenda. And let me begin by asking if either of you have any questions or comments on those items. And I will begin with Commissioner Keene.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Yes, I intend to vote to approve all items on the consent agenda with the exception of item number 2 that involves docket number 22-CONS-3033-CPEN, for which I will recuse.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Duffy, any questions or comments?
Good morning. I have no questions or comments. I move adoption of the consent agenda, noting Commissioner Keene's recusal on item number 2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda, noting Commissioner Keene's recusal on item number 2. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, those in favor, please vote aye.
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 Aye. The consent agenda is approved. We now move to our noticed items. Our first noticed item is in docket number 21, KGSG 286-COM, and this is a proposed order on formal complaint. And our presenter for this item is Mr. David Cohen. David?
Good morning, Commissioners. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Before you is an order denying Bruce Vaughn's formal complaint against Kansas Gas Service. On Saturday, September 26, 2020, Bruce Vaughn damaged a natural gas line while installing the sprinkler system. Vaughn called 911, who dispatched KGS to the scene, and KGS repaired the line. On October 8, 2020, KGS sent Vaughn an itemized invoice for the cost of the repair, which totaled a little under $1,100, most of which was labor costs, which were enhanced because the incident took place on a weekend. On April 20th, 2021, Vaughn submitted an amended complaint to the Commission acknowledging his responsibility for paying the repairs, but alleging the costs were excessive and desiring a reduced bill. On May 11th, 2021, KGS submitted a response noting that the itemized charges were in compliance with existing tariffs. On July 26th, Commission staff filed its report and recommendation noting labor costs are controlled by 2 union contracts and that the charges were just and reasonable. Staff recommended the amended complaint be dismissed. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Let me turn to the commissioners to see if we have any questions of you before we vote. Commissioner Keene, I will begin with you.
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions?
I have no questions, and I move approval of the order.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the described order. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. The order is approved. We now move to our second noticed item. This is in docket number 21, GIMX 307 MIS, and it is a proposed order on Kansas Open Records Act request. And again, our presenter is Mr. David Cohen. David?
Thank you. On February 3rd, 2021, the Commission received a request under the Kansas Open Record Act from Sarah Spicer of the Wichita Eagle, requesting documents related to Evergy's Sustainability Transportation Plan, including a presentation given by Evergy and a report by the Boston Consulting Group. On February 5th, 2021, the Commission partially fulfilled Spicer's request, but did not include the Boston Consulting Group's report because it contained confidential information. CORA allows an agency to withhold disclosure of information if such disclosure is prohibited by law. Under KSA 66-1220A, such disclosure is prohibited unless the Commission determines that the disclosure is warranted after considering 4 factors. Those factors are whether the disclosure will significantly aid the Commission in fulfilling its functions, the harm and benefit which the disclosure will cause to the public interest, the harm which the disclosure will cause to the corporation, partnership, or sole proprietorship, and the alternatives that will serve the public interest and protect the corporation. Under KR 821221A, when the commission receives a request for confidential information, the party wishing to keep the information confidential is notified and has 5 days to respond and substantiate the basis for non-disclosure, after which the party seeking disclosure has 5 days to respond to that. Evergy was informed of the request on February 5th and filed its response on February 9th. Evergy noted the information included strategies employed or to be employed or are under consideration, and also private, technical, and business information, which would qualify as confidential. Spicer was informed of Evergy's response, but never filed a reply. Because of Spicer's lack of reply, the commission is unable to determine that disclosure of the Boston Consulting Group report is warranted under KSA 661220A and should be denied. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that explanation and description of the legal authority, David. Let me turn to my fellow commissioners to see if there are any questions for you on this item, and I will begin again with Commissioner Keen.
No question.
Thank you. Commissioner Duffy.
I have no questions and I move approval of the order.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the described order in this docket. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, those in favor of approving the order, please vote aye.
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 Aye. The order is approved. Thank you, David. We now move to our discussion item, and this is a quarterly update to the Commission from KCC Public Affairs and Consumer Protection Division, and our presenter is the Director of PACP, Ms. Linda Berry. Good morning, Linda.
Good morning, commissioners. Today, as you said, I'll be providing a quarterly update. And since we recently completed fiscal year 2021, I'm going to report on the entire fiscal year to give you a picture of what happened and transpired during that year. So I will share my screen. And let's see. I'm not sure you're seeing what I want you to see here.
I think we see page 10, slide 10.
Okay, perfect.
But we are seeing a notes view. We're not seeing just the presentation view.
Okay, let me get that changed.
That looks good.
Okay, are we good?
Yes.
All right. Sorry for that short delay.
Oh, we're back to a notes view here,
Oh,
Linda.
no. Okay. All right, let me try this again. I think how's that?
No change.
I am not sure why that's happening.
Well, it's okay as long as you don't mind us seeing that view. We can see the slides.
Well, I'd much rather have you see what.
Go ahead and take a minute. Well, that looks good.
Are you seeing what you need to see now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we've heard and talked a lot this year about how 2021 was a little bit out of the ordinary, and I think that the slides that I'm going to share with you today will definitely reflect that. Starting with the trends. So if you look at that 6-year trend, you'll notice that it's been pretty consistent. It started climbing a little bit in 2016, stabilized a bit in 2018, and then was pretty stable, slight variations up until this year when we jumped about almost 300 complaints during this fiscal year. And the next slide, I think, will tell the picture a little bit better, in that it shows the complaints by month, but you're not seeing those, are you? Okay, gosh. I am just not sure what you're seeing.
We're still
Weird.
seeing your first slide, or slide 2 of the deck.
Slide 2, okay. And it's not advancing for me. Denise is here. Can we pause for just a moment and see
Yes.
what's going on here? Thank you.
We will stand in recess for just 1 moment.
I don't know why it's-
We are now seeing, oh, we were seeing complaint volume by month. Now it went back. There it is. We're back on the trends screen
Yes,
now.
please. Okay. Thank
All
you very
right.
much for your indulgence here.
Okay,
I-
if we have it, do we think it's fixed now?
We do think it's
Okay.
fixed, yes.
Well, we are no longer in recess then, and you may begin again.
All right, well, so we've covered the trends. We've seen that we have an extra 300 complaints, nearly 300 this year. And then the next thing I want to show you are our complaints by month. I have to say this is the most difficult presentation I've done after many, and I'm not sure what's happening here, but here are the complaints by month. You'll notice that February, not surprisingly, had a very big spike there, 253. That is quite unusual. Normally in February, our numbers are less than half of that. And another trend that we noticed is once February was over, the high numbers continued. We had people who in March were starting to get bills for February, which were higher than they expected due to the cold weather. And then in April and May, there was still a lot of concern about what those extraordinary costs would be. Although people knew they were deferred, there was some question about what's going to happen next. Will I have to pay those charges? So a lot of uncertainty there. And then that started tapering off some in June, where we're seeing numbers that were a little bit more normal than what we usually see. The next slide are complaints by industry. And I did include non-jurisdictional complaints in those categories just to show you and give you a better idea of what people are calling and what they're concerned about. And this, you'll notice electric is the highest. That is not uncommon. Probably the higher numbers are a little more uncommon, but they typically fall into this category. So that's not real unusual, just the higher numbers. The next slide are monthly complaints by industry. And you'll notice in February, electric complaints were quite high. A lot of that was due to the blackouts that were going on, people trying to get a hold of the company. They were swamped with calls. We started getting calls. There was just a lot of uncertainty about what was going on. And then in March, you'll notice that the number of electric and gas complaints kind of evened out, which is a little bit unusual, but that shows the concerns that were going on at that time. The next slide shows complaints by category. And for the most part, this is pretty typical. There's quite a bit in non-regulated and miscellaneous, but that is always the case. It's pretty much anything that doesn't fit in one of those other categories or would be non-regulated by the KCC. The next slide does show that we do have one big difference, and that would be disconnection numbers, and that's the fourth down. And you'll see that we had far fewer disconnections this year than previous years. I think you can attribute some of that to the fact that utilities had various moratoriums going on. There were payment plans in place. People were able to at least get started on payment plans. We've heard from a number of people who were not able to keep up with those, but they were available to get started. And the final slide I have here are just some overall metrics. The total complaints, which months were the busiest, which was February. November was slowest. The dollars saved, almost 23,000 out of 24 disputed. So that's a pretty high percentage. 78% of our complaints were resolved in one day, and 90% of the total were resolved within 5 days. There are some that take a little longer because they involve inspections and lots of back and forth with the company, or maybe they involve someone within a dispute that needs to be investigated more thoroughly to resolve. But for the most part, nearly 80% resolved in one day. We had 11 formal complaints that were filed out of our informals. And also during this time, I guess if you'll indulge me a minute, I want to give a shout out to my staff, because during this time of very high call volume, they were also processing public comments. There were a couple of dockets that received a lot of comments, over 1,000 in one that was filed in 2021. And then we filed a very large public comment filing in July, where most of those came in prior to the end of June as well. So in addition to taking a very high volume of calls, they were also working on public comments and getting those assembled so that the public could express their views on issues that were obviously very important to them. So those are the notes I have to share with you at this point. Does anyone have any questions that I could answer?
I don't, this isn't a question, but a comment. The bullet point on your dollars saved versus what was disputed, I don't recall seeing that metric in the past. Maybe it has been presented to us, but I just want to say I find that amazing and a testament to the coordination work that you all do between, putting utilities and customers in contact with each other and helping to facilitate that conversation. And I think it shows that, you know, there is something that can be done when folks see something on a bill that doesn't look right. And it's a reminder that we can help them. And so I just want to say, I think that figure is amazing. And thank you for that.
Thank you.
Linda, thank you for the information. And this reflects an entire year of work by your staff. I would note that the calls you received in January and February related to the storm, I know that the immediate calls you received of, they said my power is going to be out an hour and now I'm in my 4th hour. I appreciate your staff's diligence to keep, you know, folks calm and to just reassure them that as soon as possible, their power was going to come on. I think that that couple of days, just like what we're in this week with the heat, the long-term cold just wears on people, and especially if their house is not insulated well, and no matter what they're doing, they can't stay warm. And I know you guys are the first line of defense when they cannot get through to the utility. Who do I call next? So I know that was a difficult time for your staff, and I appreciate them remaining calm and purposeful in their desire to help people. It's never pleasant to be on that end of the line, but thank you. It seems like that was long ago, but actually it wasn't. And for those people, you know, that was a horrific moment.
Linda, I would offer a couple of general observations. First of all, outstanding report, really. To say the least, certainly the last half, or the last 6 months, or the last half of FY21 were incredibly challenging for us and for the industries that we regulate, to be sure. Of course, as a result of that and the concerns that we all have about trying to find the underlying reasons behind why certain events incidental to the Winter Storm Uri transpired, we have now 7 open investigations with respect to each of our jurisdictional utilities and trying to answer that. I think what you've done here by way of your report, you captured the essence of at least as far as some of the numbers are concerned, and some of the sources of what the concerns are that the public has. And I congratulate you for that. I thank you for that. It's an excellent report.
Thank you.
One more comment, if I could. During the last fiscal year, we held several public meetings that were that Linda orchestrated, especially the DG public hearing event that we held in December, that what Linda, over 100 were online.
Yes.
At the time. And we all had our fingers crossed, and it went very well. It was very orderly. I applaud you and the IT staff for ensuring that things went well. But I don't believe if we had met in person, we would have been able to capture as much public comment as we did that evening. And I really do want to credit you and IT for making sure that that went well. And it just shows how technology can kind of open the doors. And it was extremely beneficial to me as a commissioner to hear from folks about, you know, their thoughts and perceptions. So I do want to thank you for those events that you help host.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second that. And I will say that I think the KCC has not only met its obligations during this time, but has actually improved some of its functions and certainly improved its transparency and availability to the public. And Linda, you and the IT staff as well were just enormous parts of that. And so thank you very much.
Thank you.
So this brings us to the end of your presentation, correct?
Yes, it does.
All right. Well, with that, we have reached the end of the items on our noticed agenda. If I do not hear any additional business to come before us this morning, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
A motion and a second to adjourn. Those in favor, please vote aye.
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 Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.